Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Saturday, August 6, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to put your baseball picks and positive vibes in the comments section below. Now, if you're looking for my MLB best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at Pickdawgz.com. Of course, I'm always running my $15 MLB best bets, so you can check it out at Pick Dawgz Premium. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Saturday, August 6th. First up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the New York Mets. This is going to be a doubleheader. We actually have two doubleheaders for Saturday's card, this one and the Angels-Mariners. Now, the doubleheader games are a little tricky to go over on the rundown just because a lot of the information changes from the night before to the morning of or the day of. So, great place to be for the information on doubleheader games. Our morning show, we do it every single day, 10 a.m. Eastern. Brian, Mitch, and Chris go over all the games on the board in the MLB, so you can check out that show to get a little bit more information to see where these starting pitchers are going to be. But we should see Max Fried and Max Scherzer going in Game 1, David Peterson and Jake Odorizzi going in Game 2. This could certainly change, but if these are the starters in Game 1, I do like the Mets to get to Max Fried here. We saw the last outing Fried had back on July 11th against these Mets. He gave up 5 hits, he gave up 5 walks. Now, only 2 earned runs were allowed, but still a lot of people on base. The Mets had plenty of chances with runners in scoring position. They really couldn't capitalize, but they still won the game outright 4-1. I like them to win Game 1. Max Scherzer pitching very well this season for New York. 2.09 ERA at home this year, so a little bit better at Citi Field this season. Give me the Mets in Game 1, but I do think the Braves have the advantage in Game 2, at least in the starting pitching matchup. This is going to be the Atlanta debut of Jake Odorizzi. He's had mixed results this year, but on the other side, David Peterson, I do worry quite a bit about. You look, Peterson's having pretty good strikeout stuff, and his ERA 3.54, not too shabby. However, he does have issues with the home run ball and the walks. We saw him really struggle last year because of that. And the Atlanta Braves already hit a homer on him earlier this season in a 4-1 Braves win. I think they get to him in this spot. Peterson not the best at home this year, 4.99 ERA at Citi Field. Give me the Atlanta Braves in Game 2. So the Mets in Game 1, the Braves in Game 2. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Chicago Cubs. We're going to see Pablo Lopez and Drew Smyly on the mound for this contest. Now, we saw on Friday afternoon, these two teams played in a pitcher's duel, a 2-1 final score in favor of the Cubs. Very low-scoring game. Obviously, that game went well under the total. I like this game to go under the total as well. And the Cubs had a lefty on the mound in Justin Steele on Friday. They're going to have another lefty here in Drew Smyly here on Saturday. So, the Miami Marlins this entire season really struggling against lefties. In the last 30 days alone, they have a 563 team OPS against lefties. That's 28th in baseball. One of the highest strikeout rates against lefties this year. And Drew Smyly does a really good job at keeping the ball in the yard. His average exit velocity and hard hit percentage, one of the best in starting pitchers this season. So, although he's not my favorite option to back, he doesn't strike out a ton of guys, I think this is a really favorable matchup for him. So I like the Cubs pitching staff here. But on the other side, the Chicago Cubs only had 1 hit through the first 7 innings, only scored 2 runs total. Had plenty of chances with runners in scoring position, but that's been the real struggle for this Cubs lineup this entire season. Runners in scoring position. Pablo Lopez is coming off one of his worst starts of his career, but overall this year, it's still been a successful campaign for Pablo. It was rumored that he may get moved to the trade deadline, but he'll still be a Marlin at least for the rest of this season. I think he has a bounce-back outing here against a pretty weak Cubs lineup. Give me the under in this Marlins-Cubs matchup. In our next matchup, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Seattle Mariners. Now, we don't have an official starter listed for the Angels in either Game 1 or 2, so that makes it a really tough doubleheader to go over. We should see Chris Flexen and George Kirby on the mound for the Mariners in Game 1 and 2, but overall, I'm staying away from this matchup on Saturday. First game 4:10 Eastern, second game 10:10 Eastern. I'm going to lean towards the Mariners in Game 1 and Game 2. I think they can go for the doubleheader sweep, and really they're playing the much better baseball as of late. The Angels have had a really tough 2 months or so. They went on a big-time losing streak, and nothing's going right for this franchise. They were the first team, I believe, to hit 7 home runs in a game and still lose the game 8-7. Just a lot of bad luck and underperforming going on in Los Angeles. I can't trust this Angels team, and Chris Flexen's already had success against the Angels. The Angels lineup is struggling overall in the last 30 days against righties, against lefties. So I'm going to take the Mariners here in Game 1 and Game 2. But like I said, I'm staying away from this matchup altogether. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Baltimore Orioles. We're going to see Austin Voth and JT Brubaker here on the mound. And although I think JT Brubaker is the best option the Pirates have in that rotation, he is just not in good form right now. You look at his last couple outings, 10 in the third innings against the Phillies and Cubs combined, 20 base hits, 9 earned runs, 2 homers, 2 walks, only 8 strikeouts. The Pirates have lost each of the last 4 starts that Brubaker has had. And on the other side, the Baltimore Orioles play very, very well at Camden Yards. And Austin Voth, a big surprise here. He's been pitching really well in that starting pitcher role. He struggled out of the bullpen. He struggled with his former team. But since making the move to Baltimore and since being put in that starting pitcher role, he's earning a good amount of strikeouts. He's limiting base hits and walks. He had a very sharp outing last time out against the Reds. He went 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, no earned runs in that one. And the Pittsburgh Pirates against right-handed pitching in the top 10 in strikeout percentage in terms of highest strikeout rate, 25.1% in the last 30 days. In terms of team OPS against righties, the Pittsburgh Pirates ranked 26th. Isolated power ranked 27th. I think Voth continues to pitch well. I would look at his strikeout prop. I like the over in his strikeout prop, but I'm going to take the Baltimore Orioles here on the money line. Next up, we see an NL East matchup between the Washington Nationals and the Philadelphia Phillies. Patrick Corbin and Ranger Suarez on the mound for this one. Patrick Corbin really struggling on the mound as of late. You look at his last 5 starts, 4 earned runs or more in each of those 5 outings. He had 6 earned runs and 7 hits and only 2/3 of an inning against the Dodgers. Couldn't even get out of the first inning. All 5 of those games were losses by the Nationals. And although the Phillies' numbers against lefties haven't been the best as of late, there's just no way I could take a chance on Corbin and the Nationals here. I got to go with the Phillies on the run line, as they are pretty big favorites on the money line. So try to get a better price here by laying the 1.5 runs. Ranger Suarez didn't start the season strong, but his last 3 outings, very, very sharp. He hasn't given up an earned run in each of his last 3 starts. All of those wins by the Phillies, by the way, 2 of those wins on the run line, and 4 of the last 5 games he's pitched, the Phillies have also won, 3 of those being on the run line. So pitching very, very well lately. Give me the Philadelphia Phillies here on the run line. In our next matchup, we see Luis Garcia of the Houston Astros taking on Cal Quantrill of the Cleveland Guardians at Progressive Field. 6:10 Eastern start time here in Cleveland. I like the over in this game. I think we're going to see plenty of runs by both teams in this one. You look at Cal Quantrill, he's really struggling. He's starting to regress from where we saw him at the beginning of the year, where he had a really good start to the 2022 season. In his last 2 outings, 11 1/3 innings against the Red Sox and D-backs, 9 earned runs, 4 home runs in that stretch. And he just hasn't been very impressive, even though the Guardians are still winning most of the starts that he's had. You look at his last 5 outings, hasn't been the best for him, but they've won all 5 games, the Guardians, and that's because they've scored 8 runs, 10 runs, 8 runs, 7 runs, and 6 runs in those starts. This is a pretty good Guardians lineup, especially against right-handed pitching, and Luis Garcia himself hasn't been the strongest. You look at his last 5 outings, at least 1 home run allowed in 4 of his last 5. He's given up 3 earned runs to the Red Sox last time out, 4 earned runs to the A's in his previous start. The walk's starting to pile up for him a little bit. Now, the strikeout numbers have been good for Garcia this season. However, we know the Guardians don't strike out a lot as a team. You look at their K rate in the last 30 days, the lowest in baseball against righties, 18.2%. So Garcia is not going to be able to get those strikeouts, in my opinion, in this start. Even when Verlander had his great outing in this series already, the strikeouts weren't really there. He had 5 Ks in that outing. So if Garcia is held to 5 or less strikeouts, he could be in trouble in this one, especially when you look at those issues with the home run ball. Give me the over in this Guardians-Astros matchup. For our next matchup, we go to Detroit as the Rays take on the Tigers. Shane McClanahan and Garrett Hill are your starters for this contest. Garrett Hill, a 5.88 ERA. He's only had 11 strikeouts in 26 innings pitched this season, and I don't trust him in this outing against the Rays lineup that is improving. Hill's given up at least 3 earned runs in each of his last 4 starts, and he hasn't really pitched too deep into games, only 5 innings at the most in each of those outings, so I do worry about him here. On the other side, we got one of the better pitchers in baseball this season, McClanahan. Now, he did struggle in his last outing, but I do expect a bounce back here. A 1.62 ERA on the road this year with 57 strikeouts in 44 1/3 innings pitched. He leads the league in WHIP, top 5 in ERA, top 5 in strikeouts, one of the best strikeout rates in baseball in terms of K per 9. Although the Tigers have pretty good numbers against lefties overall this year, it's not enough for me to want to take the Tigers in this spot. So give me this Tampa Bay Rays here on the run line. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Texas Rangers with Michael Kopech and Dane Dunning on the mound. Now, this is not my favorite game on the board. I'm just going to lean towards the White Sox here, but I'm not necessarily in love with Michael Kopech as of late. He's given up at least 1 home run in 3 of his last 5, at least 3 walks in 4 of his last 5, and the strikeout numbers for him are way, way down as of late. only 3 strikeouts in 7 innings against the Royals. He only had 4 and 5 1/3 against the Rockies, 2 in 5 innings against the Twins. So to me, he's a strikeout dependent guy, and if you're going to have control issues and walking batters, you're going to have that strikeout stuff to back it up. But it just hasn't been the case as of late. At the beginning of the season, he was striking out a good amount of hitters, but recently, not so much. On the other side, Dane Dunning is also walking a lot of batters. He's given up at least 3 walks in 4 of his last 5, at least a homer in 4 of his last 5 also, and his strikeout numbers are down. So I do think that both of these pitchers are pretty similar, but I would give the edge offensively to the White Sox just slightly, and I would give the edge to the White Sox bullpen a lot more in this spot. And that's why I'm going to take Chicago here. I think the Rangers have one of the weaker bullpens in baseball. I just can't trust them in this spot. Give me the Chicago White Sox here on the money line. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Oakland Athletics. Carlos Rodon and Adam Oller are your starters. Now, Carlos Rodon did have a really strong outing last time out against the Cubs. 7 innings, 2 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 10 strikeouts. That was a big bounce-back start for him as he struggled against the D-backs and the Dodgers back on July 26th and July 21st, giving up 10 earned runs combined in those 2 outings, a couple home runs as well. Now, the strikeouts have been there all season for Rodon, and the Oakland A's, they've had some issues with the strikeouts here and there this season. Against lefties as of late, not so much, but their team OPS is still ranked 20th against lefties in the last 30 days. I'm not impressed by that, especially at home where this team has struggled mostly, so I don't think the A's offense does much here. On the other side, Adam Oller, not my favorite starting pitcher to back. He's got an ERA at 7.68 this season. However, against the Giants here, I think it's actually a favorable matchup, at least to keep the bats down a bit. I still like the Giants to get to Oller for a few runs and win this game in the end, but the price on the money line is very, very steep. I wouldn't really want to lay a run line with San Francisco either. When you just look at their numbers, 28th in isolated power, 28th in team OPS, and top 10 in highest strikeout rate against righties in the last 30 days. I'm going to take the under in this game. I think it's the most valuable play you can make in this spot. Give me the under 7.5 runs in San Francisco, Oakland. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the Kansas City Royals with Nathan Eovaldi and Daniel Lynch on the mound. Now, Daniel Lynch is a left-handed pitcher in the Red Sox, although they've had their struggles in the last month. They have had pretty good numbers against lefties offensively. Against righties, hasn't really been the case, but against lefties, top 15 in team OPS and isolated power. So I do like their matchup here against Lynch. On the other side, Nathan Eovaldi coming off a nice bounce-back start himself, 6 1/3 innings, no earned runs, 6 strikeouts against a pretty good Astros lineup on the road. The Red Sox got the win in that one. That was after a few rough starts from Eovaldi. We've seen he's been one of the more inconsistent guys this year, having a couple of starts that you'd like to forget about against the Blue Jays and the Astros. But he's also had a couple of really good starts, shutout performances against the Angels, the A's. Like I mentioned, the Astros didn't give up an earned run before. So I think the Red Sox are the better play here on the road. Decent price. The Red Sox, their struggles, the books are starting to get them a little bit less heavy price. We see about a month ago, they were minus 200 in most of their games. Right here, you only have to lay minus 140, so not too bad. I'm going to take the Red Sox here on the money line. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Minnesota Twins. Dylan Bundy going for the Twins. No official starter for the Blue Jays quite yet. Toronto's numbers against right-handed pitching has been very, very strong, really this entire season, but in the last 30 days especially, an 823 OPS, team OPS against righties. That's number 2 in baseball. The isolated power numbers in the top 15 as well. Dylan Bundy has better numbers at home this year overall, but as of late, he's struggling on the road and at home. His last 4 starts, giving up at least 3 earned runs. Hasn't really been able to pitch too deep into ball games. Hasn't struck out a lot of batters and giving up a good amount of walks and home runs. So I can't trust him in this outing. The Twins bullpen has also struggled quite a bit this season. Although they added a few names at the trade deadline to help out that bullpen, I don't think it's enough for him in this spot. I don't think Bundy's going to go more than 4 or 5 innings here. I think the Blue Jays win this game on the road. Give me Toronto on the money line. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Nick Lodolo and Aaron Ashby on the mound for this one. Now, 2 left-handed pitchers that are pretty volatile. Guys that can earn some strikeouts. They do have some control issues here and there, giving up some home runs here and there as well. But when you look at these 2 lineups, the Brewers and the Reds, Brewers number 1 and highest strikeout rate as a team against lefties in the last month. 30% in the last month. You look at the Reds, number 2, 28.7%. So these teams like to swing and miss against left-handed pitchers as of late. When you look at the Brewers' numbers against lefties, team OPS-wise, 547. That's ranked 29th, just a little bit better than Los Angeles Angels right now. Isolated power numbers, not really much better. Actually dead last in the league with a 57 isolated power. The Brewers are The Cincinnati Reds at the beginning of the year were hitting lefties better than righties, but right now they're not really doing much against either. And with those trade deadline moves, getting Brandon Drury out of the lineup, that's a big lefty killer. It's not going to be with the Cincinnati Reds any longer. So I don't really trust either of these lineups against lefties right now. Nick Lodolo has improved his game quite a bit. His last 2 starts, very, very sharp. Aaron Ashby, another guy that I think was a little bit unlucky at the beginning of the season. I think he sharpens up here and the rest of the year. So I like the under in this Reds-Brewers matchup. Next up, we see an interleague matchup between the New York Yankees and the St. Louis Cardinals. Domingo Germán and Jordan Montgomery are your starters. Now, the surprise move of the trade deadline, one of the surprise moves we saw was the Yankees deciding to move Jordan Montgomery to St. Louis to pick up Harrison Bader in a 1-for-1 trade. And, Jordan Montgomery is pitching well for the Yankees in that rotation. A lot of people were surprised, including Montgomery himself. He had no idea that that was going to even be a possibility. But here he is making his first start with his new team against his former team. This is going to be a tough outing for Montgomery. Now, he does know this lineup pretty well. However, the lineup knows him pretty well. So I don't really think either person or team has an advantage in that sense. But when you look at the Yankees, isolated power, they're number 1 against lefties in the last month. Team OPS, a 986 team OPS against lefties in the last month. That's number 1 in baseball as well. I think this is a tough spot for Montgomery to be in. It's going to be probably an emotional start for him. He's going to want to prove something here, but the Yankees bats have just been so good against southpaws. I don't know if I can trust him here. Domingo Germán, not my favorite option, so I would lean towards the over, but I think the Yankees bullpen's a lot better than St. Louis's. I trust their lineup more as well, so give me the New York Yankees here on the money line. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're to see Merrill Kelly and Antonio Senzatella on the mound for this one. Now, Merrill Kelly started the season strong at the beginning of the year, one of the best starting pitchers in the league. Then he fizzled off just a little bit, had a couple of rough outings, but now he's been razor sharp lately. You look at his last 5 starts, all quality starts for the D-backs. He's went 6 1/3, 2 earned runs against the Giants, 7 innings, 2 earned runs against the Giants, 6 innings, 1 earned run against the Padres, and then his last 2 starts against the Giants and Braves, 15 combined innings, no earned runs, 15 strikeouts. That's very impressive. The Rockies' numbers against righties on the road this year haven't been great offensively, so I think Kelly pitches well here. He already had a really good start against Colorado at home earlier in the year and more towards the beginning of the season, but I think Kelly has a sharp outing here. On the other side, Antonio Senzatella struggles at home. He struggles on the road, but he actually has worse numbers on the road. 0-4 with a 6.16 ERA away from home this season, giving up at least 3 earned runs in each of his last 5 starts, including a 2-inning, 3 earned run, 1 home run performance against these D-backs in a 9-3 blowout loss for the Rockies. I can't trust Senzatella here, especially when you look at his counterpart. Give me the D-backs here at home. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. We've saved the best for last. This is our final game of the night. Mike Clevinger and Andrew Heaney are your starters. Now, Mike Clevinger's been pitching really well as of late. He hasn't faced the toughest of lineups, so this is going to be the toughest test he's had in quite some time. I do think the Dodgers score a few runs on him, but I do think the Padres also can get to Andrew Heaney. Where we've seen Heaney struggle the most is the walks. He's already given up at least 2 walks in each of his last 4 starts. Now, the strikeouts have been there. He hasn't given up a lot of earned runs. He's got a .77 ERA right now. He hasn't pitched a lot of innings, so that's obviously going to go up a little bit as the season continues. However, the Padres' top 5 in walk percentage in the last month against lefties, 10.4% against southpaws in the last 30 days. In terms of strikeout rate, they're outside the top 10 in high strikeout rate, which I like to see. Their numbers against lefties offensively in team OPS and isolated power are improving. They're in the top 15 in team OPS. Isolated power numbers not as good, but still not too shabby either. And with the additions they made at the trade deadline, Bell, Soto, Drury, the big ones, I think this lineup's in even better shape to face Heaney in this spot. I'm going to take the San Diego Padres here. We're getting plus money in this spot. Give me them on the money line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Saturday, August 6th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.